أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول النبي الكريم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So last time we completed a session about the introduction to this book of Ibn Taymiyyah regarding diseases of the heart. Today we'll be beginning with chapter 1. So in the first chapter, he describes what is a sound heart, what is a diseased heart, and what is a dead heart. So when we speak about a sound heart, let's go the other way around. We'll begin with the heart that is dead. So a heart which is dead, the first characteristic of it is that it's an ignorant heart, which means that it does not have enough knowledge of the reality of life, the purpose of life, and knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So and this can happen to even somebody who had once upon a time a sound heart, and then slowly it deteriorates to a point where the heart dies. And this happens when we don't nourish the soul with what its requirements are. For example, just like how we have our physical body, and when we feed nutritious food to our physical body, the body grows in a healthy way. Whereas if you feed junk, or if you deprive your body of its basic needs and necessities, the body starts deteriorating. Either you fall sick, or if you deprive yourself to a certain extent, you can even die physically. It's just like that, the heart itself or the soul has its own way of nourishment. And that is the key of that is dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we deprive our hearts from this dhikr, or from this, the sound aqidah, or from just knowing who their creator is or what your purpose in life is. That's how slowly the heart dies off. And today, if we look at the number of people, there's so many billions of people on earth, but it's not necessarily that everybody has a sound heart or has a heart even that is alive, because some are just walking with dead hearts. When I speak about dead heart, what does it actually mean? It means that the heart no longer recognizes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does not acknowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favors upon him. And this is the main characteristic of atheists who don't believe in a creator. Like, there might be others who believe in God, but they don't have the right concept of God. They might have diseased hearts, or still their hearts might be completely dead if they are into shirk, or if they're doing idol worship and things like that. But the complete dead heart is the one that does not even acknowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this comes with arrogance. And that's why I mentioned a little bit about arrogance in the previous session, about how this is one trait that we as human beings have to work hard to avoid, because it's not necessary that it's not that you have it or you don't have it. You might not have it today, but you might fall into it some other day, just like how one can fall into sins slowly without even realizing. So what are the things that we need to avoid in order to prevent our hearts from dying? First is having constant contact with the book of Allah, which is the Quran. And that's why the first thing that Ibn Taymiyyah mentions is how the Quran is a cure for the hearts. And we spoke about this a little bit in detail in the previous session. So just having a relationship in the sense that every day you recite something of it and have a relationship with the Quran. For example, if you're just sleeping at night, before you sleep, take out your phones, read 5 ayahs, 10 ayahs, 20, how many ever you can, and read it with the intention that this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wanting me to do right now, or is wanting me to this is a microphone that's on. Yeah. So reading it with the intention as to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects of me. So once we start, because what are the diseases of the hearts? The main two are shubahat and shahawat, the doubts and the desires. So when we recite the Quran, the doubts that we have, it could be about the hereafter, it could be about certain concepts in our mind, or even if it's not doubts, but it's just something that we didn't contemplate on, when we recite the Quran, automatically it gets engraved in our hearts. And even our desires, they get suppressed when we are purifying ourselves and undergoing this process of tazkiyah by reciting the Quran and understanding what we're reciting. So a heart that is dead is one that is arrogant, because it does not acknowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as their creator, and a heart that is negligent, which could be that the person has knowledge, but he's just too busy with things of the dunya, or too busy with other things that has diverted him from the remembrance of Allah. Right? And there's a verse, Al-Hakumut Takathur Hatta Zurtumul Maqabir, that abundance diverts you, or the mutual rivalry of piling up worldly gains, it diverts you until you visit the grave. And that's why it's another important thing that we constantly think about death in order to give life to our hearts. Like when we contemplate on death, it makes us realize that we're heading somewhere, that this is our next goal, or this is our next home, in fact, because we work so hard in building our homes in the dunya. We work so hard in building our careers or our homes, or in just, doing things of the dunya, which is you have to do it to survive. But if that becomes our whole and sole purpose, we end up neglecting what's coming next. And the point is that nobody has a guarantee as to when their soul will be taken away. The angel of death visits you every single day, and you have no idea when your soul will be taken away and when you will face the next life. So the wise one is the one who prepares for it beforehand, because at the back of our mind, shaitan makes us think. He whispers and makes us think we have a long time. You can repent tomorrow. You can become more religious tomorrow. You can become more practicing tomorrow. But what if that tomorrow never comes? And we hear so much news about people passing away just, without having any issues or without even any warnings. So one has to live their life as though they're going to face death any moment. So the question is, am I ready to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this stage in my life? Am I completely prepared, or can I work better? Can I have more for my akhirah? That was the first point. The second point, it just came in my mind and it slipped. It was about yes. So the mutual rivalry of piling up worldly gains diverts you until you visit the graves. So this distraction that takes place, if we get too busy with the dunya, what happens is we even end up losing out on the dunya itself. Because who is the one that provides us the dunya? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for example, somebody is praying, but they're rushing their salah to get somewhere, or they're rushing their salah to do something. Who is the one who is in charge of the thing that you're rushing for? That's the question we need to ask. So next time, if you're praying and if you feel that you're rushing through it, or you want to get somewhere, or you want to do something, and you're just treating salah as something, a routine that you have to get done with, then realize that it is Allah who is in charge of that thing which you're rushing for. So if we are taking our time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, won't He handle our affairs in the right way, or in a way that makes it easy for us? And that is why there's a hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the one, I don't have it in front of me right now, I'm just paraphrasing it, but you can look it up just to get the exact hadith, that the one who makes the dunya his whole and sole focus, then Allah will scatter his affairs for him, and he will have nothing of it except that which was decreed for him. Whereas the one who makes the akhirah his whole and sole purpose, or his focus, the one who makes the hereafter his focus, then Allah will set his affairs straight, and he will get that which is there. So in what it means is that if you're distracted with dunya, you're just running after the dunya, there's another hadith which actually mentions that Allah will put poverty between his two eyes, which means that even though he has everything, he will still feel that he needs more, or he will still feel he doesn't have enough, because his whole and sole focus becomes the dunya. So you're running after worldly things, you're running after whatever it may be that is distracting you, and you're putting your whole and sole focus and energy in that worldly desire or that worldly gain. So even though you're working hard for it, you might not actually see the results. And instead, you might see poverty before your eyes. Doesn't mean poverty in the sense that lack of money, but just this insufficiency inside, or just this lack of contentment inside. And this is something which is in Allah's control, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who holds our hearts. So He can flip the hearts the way He wishes. So if we ask Allah, when we make the dua, which was the most common dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik, that O turner of hearts, keep my heart steadfast upon your religion. But if we don't do that, and if we get distracted, then even though we're working hard for the dunya, we won't really benefit much from it. Whereas somebody who keeps the hereafter as his goal, he focuses on the hereafter, and his life revolves around pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he will see that all his affairs fall into place. Everything just keeps going for him. And which means that he has barakah in his life, more barakah in his life, because of which nothing stresses him out, or nothing is upside down. Everything goes on smoothly till his iman is upright, till his iman is at a high level, till he is worshipping Allah in the right way, till he is giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his whole and soul attention. And it could be that the same person may not have it in the same way after a few days or weeks or months, depending on the level of one's iman. So somebody who works hard on their iman on a daily basis and tries to focus on the hereafter is actually even working for his dunya, so that his dunya also becomes easy for him. So on page 48, the Sheikh has written, the disease of the body is the opposite of its being sound and in good health. It is a degeneration that occurs in it, causing a failure of the natural senses of perception and movement. So with respect to its perception, either it goes completely off, such as blindness or deafness, or it perceives the objects incorrectly. So basically what it means is that just like how when our body is sick, what is the meaning of the body being diseased? It means that it's not at ease. So not necessarily that you might have a major ailment or a major disease or something. It could just be that you're not at ease, and that's the meaning of disease. Anything that interrupts with your daily chores or your daily routine, and you cannot perform your tasks to the best of their ability, that it makes it difficult for the person to live a happy normal life or just a basic life without any stress. Like if a person does not take care of their health physically, they fall sick, they might be ill, they won't die, right? They won't die all of a sudden, but they might live a not so good quality of life, which they might be suffering, they might be on medications, they might just not be healthy enough to wake up and start off their day. And this happens to people, those are depressed, those are going through anxiety, or those who's even lack of diet is one of the causes of having these kind of mood swings and stuff like that, or lack of proper healthy diet. So just like that, if we deprive our soul from its nourishment, the soul has its own issues. And what is the key thing that one has to guard in order to protect their soul? Let me make it more interactive. If you want, you can type the answers in the chat session. What do you think is the key factor that actually helps us guard our soul? Because the soul, or say for example the heart has openings. We speak about the sound heart, right? So in order to maintain the soundness of this heart, what is it that we need to guard? There are two most important things that we need to guard in order for our hearts to be sound, or in order to protect our hearts from being diseased. Okay, Iman, the remembrance of Allah, Salah. Okay, so these are the things that help us purify the heart, right? But what are the things that actually start disease, like start the process of disease in our hearts? Where does it begin? And it's something which is very common, which we go through almost every day of our life. Two factors that actually penetrate the heart in order to start the poison to spread. Like basically the poisons, it's actually in one hadith or in one narration, it's actually mentioned as the poisons of the heart. If everybody has the exact answer that I'm looking for. Okay, doubts, that we covered up that. Shubhat and shahawat, the doubts and the desires. But specifically one thing that actually can straight away, like it's like an arrow, it's called the Satan's arrow, Shaitan's arrow, that actually straight away goes and hits the heart and starts the poison spreading. It is our gaze, what we see, whatever you see, the eyes are actually the window to the heart. So if somebody is constantly exposing their eyes to something which is haram, it's kind of, you don't see the results of it immediately, but that's how the heart starts deteriorating. And also the ears, whatever you hear. And that is why I stressed so much on music in the last session, because what the music is something that works instantly to take somebody's heart away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It works within seconds. You don't even need a few more sessions of it. The minute you hear music, automatically your mind can go from where it's right now to somewhere else, like literally to another planet, right? That's how music works. And that's the tool of shaitan. Just like that, even the eyes, if we constantly keep watching haram or keep looking at things that are forbidden, and it could be anything, it could be something on the streets, which is a poster, or it could be, and today it's like everywhere in our phones, right? Even if you're just scrolling through halal pages on the website, or if you're reading a book online, or if you're just looking up something online, there are so many pop-ups that come up, or there are so many things that if one does not have iman, if one does not have a high level of taqwa, you can just sway away. And that's why it's extremely important as women, as mothers, we keep our youth away from technology as much as you can. Even if they have to study on it, you have to find ways in which you can keep them away. We might think that we're giving our kids a phone, or if you have grown-up kids and if you have given them phones or laptops or computers, we are literally ruining. They might be doing religious work on it, but it doesn't take long for a person just to click on one wrong thing and get completely swayed away from what they were doing. And you might be even reading Quran on your phone, you might be doing anything, and you might get a message or something, or just you're going through your Facebook to reply to somebody, or to read a post, or just be updated with the news, or whatever it is, or even news channels, and you always have these ads. This is the reality. This is shaitan working at his best to drag people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's how the heart gets diseased, by what we see and what we hear. So even if you're watching an Islamic video, there could be music in the background. Like the kids, they're listening to nasheeds, but there are musics in the background. So that's how shaitan has entered every home. And it's one of the signs where music will be in every single home. And even in Muslim homes, we have so much of fitna going on with music and with things that are not supposed to be watched and seen. So if we are exposing our eyes on a daily basis to haram, and it could be even women looking at women which are not dressed correctly, not necessarily that you're looking at an undressed man or a man looking at a woman who's not well dressed, or just a woman for that matter, but just even us just scrolling through and looking at models, and then that's how shaitan makes you feel depressed, and women come crying saying that, oh, I don't feel good, I feel depressed, I feel I'm overweight, I feel I'm not good enough. It makes one ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because when you're looking at something which is not real, which is filtered, which is photoshopped, it will obviously make you feel that you don't have that, and it makes you ungrateful to Allah. And this is one big it's one of the tools of shaitan to make one ungrateful to Allah. And what is ungratefulness? It's actually when we say kufr, it comes from the word kafara, which means to cover. So when we are ungrateful to Allah, it's a form of actually, you can't say really kufr, but it is a means, it is one of the ways of kufr, because we are actually hiding, we're not acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings upon us. So when we keep looking at what others have, especially now that social media has become such a common thing for people, when you keep looking at others, and if you're not aware that this is all filtered, this is Photoshop, this is not real, then a person can get affected, and that person can become ungrateful to Allah. And then you start comparing, and you start always being in that state of discontentment with life in general, and that's how people go into depression. And the people who are speaking up now, that most of the cases of depression, if they're not biological, if they're not real, we're not talking about the clinical depression, we're talking about things that people just get mood swings and they become sad, and they literally train themselves to be depressed by being ungrateful and being discontent with their life. And before you fall into that state, one has to work to get out of it at that early stage, where you refresh your iman, be grateful for what Allah has given you. Whenever you get those feelings, just start counting the blessings that Allah has given you. And you want to really know, if you want to really acknowledge Allah's blessings and want to feel that Allah has blessed me enough, then just start with the basics of just looking at your sight, your hearing, your breathing, the fact that you're healthy, maybe, or maybe you have kids around you who are healthy, or your family, and there's always something to be grateful for. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ always said that, look at those below you. You will always have somebody who is missing out on things that you have and would love to have the things that you have. For example, there was a friend of mine who was sick, and she lost her hearing. So because of the sickness. So imagine if you have, and it was temporary loss, like just wax in the ear, or because the eustachian tube was blocked, or somebody who loses their voice because of just a flu or cold, or people who actually, for example, wearing glasses, somebody who has a high number, right? At some point they had normal vision, and now their eyesight deteriorates. So if you have good eyesight, if you have good hearing, if you have good health, isn't that something to be grateful for? Because no matter how much wealth you accumulate, which people are literally living their lives for, right? People are fighting and killing each other for wealth. People are spending their entire life getting diverted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what? Because of working for the dunya, for money, because people think that happiness lies in money. But for human necessities, there is a certain limit. When you make, even say, for example, $1 million, and if you have enough already, beyond that, what are you going to do with that excess? Right? You cannot eat more than your body requires. It's just like, for example, if a person is hungry, to fulfill their hunger, or to just satiate their hunger, they will eat a certain amount. But when they are done with it, and for example, you've overeaten, you've had a huge plate of biryani or rice or whatever, then you had sweets after that, and you had cakes after that. Now, if somebody comes and offers you the best chicken in front of you, or whatever your favorite food is, if somebody offers you something which is extremely a delicious dish, but you're already full, will you be able to eat it? You would feel like puking, right? You would feel like vomiting. So that's exactly how Allah has made our life, that you don't need beyond a certain point. Your human body is designed in a way that you should be satisfied at a certain level. And when you go beyond that, you either disease yourself, or then you end up not wanting it anymore. So when we're spending our entire life running after things which we already have, we should be satisfied, and we're not, then that's when the discontentment comes in, and nothing fills the belly of the son of Adam except the dust of the grave. Meaning, even if you have something, you will always want more. So the wise one will be the one who will know his limits, who will know his or her capacity and what they require, and will then put the rest of their energy and focus and time on things which are necessary for the hereafter, because that is the eternity, right? We're working for the hereafter, which is forever. So if we are spending so much time and energy in just running after the dunya and keeping our goals and our vision so limited, what are we leaving for the hereafter? Like, how much time are we actually spending in building our home of the hereafter, and building our entire, like, your eternity, something which is going to last forever, will obviously require more effort and more time. And we think that Jannah comes to people easily, that we'll just make it. That's why this session of diseases of the heart is extremely important, because it's not just about the ritual, it's not just about praying your salah and reading the Quran, but even the character counts a lot. It could be like your daily dealings with people. Like, I come across people who are, they seem to be religious, but then when it comes to their akhlaq, their manners, it's completely different. You cannot imagine someone being close to Allah, and then you hurt people around, or you're not polite in your behavior with others, or you're not helpful towards others. So these are the key things that we need to dig into, and to see that where do I stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I tomorrow have to get up and stand in before Allah, I'm going to be alone. If I am living my life to please people around me, or if I'm doing things just so that he's pleased with me or she's pleased with me, it could be even good deeds that you're doing. But are these deeds for the sake of Allah, or are they for just pleasing people? Because when the reality hits you, when you actually realize that you're standing before Allah alone, and he's going to question you, and he knows exactly what you did. He knows the condition of our hearts. So coming back to the topic, the diseased heart is the heart that, one, is engrossed in sins, and it's the sins that actually start the whole process of the heart being diseased, and that is through the eyes and through the hearing. So one is to avoid hearing music as much as possible, as much as you can. Stay away from it, even if it's through nasheeds, even if it's through the kids stuff, and it could be even trying to avoid places that have music. And second is you're guarding the eyes, because if we do not lower our gaze, and it could be even women not lowering from men, for example, or even women are lowering from women, and I'm talking about on the screen, or when you're scrolling through, if something pops up, or even there could be other sisters on your page who are not so religious and not so practicing, and they might post something, and you might, even if it's just an interview of somebody, a song of something, or whatever it could be, whatever is available out there, if we don't lower our gaze from all these things, it's like slowly opening the window or letting shaitan in. And when that happens, it becomes an addiction, and then you cannot get out of it. So those are the two key things that we need to avoid. So the dead heart is the one that does not acknowledge Allah. The diseased heart is the one that becomes negligent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the sound heart is the one that is in constant remembrance of Allah. In their hearts is a disease, and Allah has increased their disease. Less in whose heart. Okay, these are just a few verses. Let me just see if I missed out anything from this page. The sick person is harmed by things that the healthy person is not. So slight heat or cold or exertion or any other thing will harm him due to his inability to endure them in his weakened state. So basically he's likening the diseased, physically diseased body. Like, for example, if somebody has a fever, so even slight amount of cold is going to disturb that person, or even slight amount of exertion is going to disturb the person because of the weakness that the person is already facing. So just like that, if somebody's iman is weakened, then any amount of disturbance is going to affect that person, right? But if somebody has a strong iman, then it becomes easy for that person to have sabr in difficult situations. So think about it. One person has a weak iman, one person has a strong iman. Both are facing the same calamity. So who's the one who's going to handle it in a better way? It's going to be the one with strong iman, right? Why? Because the person has been working on that iman. It's not that he just inherited that iman, right? How does one work on the iman? By remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by putting efforts and putting khushu, by keeping oneself away from sins, by trying their best to avoid situations where they might fall into sin. That's why Allah says, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about zina in the Quran, Allah says, do not even go close to zina. Allah doesn't say do not commit zina, but don't even go close to it. So what are the things that lead to zina? The eyes, right? It begins with the gaze. It begins with the tongue, the hearing, whatever, your limbs slowly do smaller sins, which actually lead to the major sin. So just like that, you have to avoid yourself from falling into situations which may lead to those sins. So if you know that you're going to go to a gathering where they're going to backbite, or there's going to be music, or there's going to be free mixing, the believer has to avoid those gatherings. And if you feel that no, but they'll feel bad and this and that, that's how shaitan distracts people. The one who pleases Allah at the cost of the displeasure of the people, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with him and he will make the people pleased with him. But somebody who keeps pleasing people at the displeasure of Allah, then neither the people are going to be pleased with him, and then the person has to face the consequences of displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also. So if you stand up for what you believe in, and if you politely and confidently try to stay away from things which are prohibited, then Allah will make it easy for you, and Allah will also make those same very people respect you. So it's shaitan who actually makes us think that, oh, they will feel bad if I don't do this, or if I don't get, mostly people get involved in sins in order to please people. Like, for example, there's a sister who wants to wear hijab, but she's not wearing it because of whatever, peer pressure of her friends or family or whatever. So if that sister goes out of her way, wears hijab for the sake of Allah, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though everybody around her is displeased, some things are crystal clear, right? Like haram and halal is clear. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it clear. Certain commandments are very clear. So when we know of these commandments and we yet disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to them, then, and we think we're pleasing people, but people will never be pleased with you, right? Like, for example, the story of the very famous story about the man and his son who are walking with a donkey or with an animal, and one of them is sitting, I think the son that is sitting and the father is walking. So when they pass by a town, people look at them and say that, oh, what a bad son, he's sitting while his dad is walking. Then they feel bad about it, so then they switch, and now the father is sitting and the son is walking. So the people again comment, the next town people again comment, oh, what a bad father, he's sitting while his son is walking. And it goes on, the story. Then both of them are sitting on the animal. So people say that, oh, what ruthless people, they don't care about the animal, they've put so much weight on the animal. And then they move again and nobody's sitting on the donkey, both of them are walking. So people say that, oh, what foolish people, they're not using the animal that they have for their ride. So in that way, nobody will ever understand your situation, and you can never please people. People will always have something to say about you. But the one who just focuses on the pleasure of Allah, they don't have to sometimes even go through these situations, because your life is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be the center of your life. And if we actually just focus on that, even if people say anything, it doesn't really affect that person. And even if they do say something, it's going to be recorded in your book of deeds. So why would one waste their life pleasing people at the cost of displeasure of Allah, and then wonder why everything is going wrong in my life? Because it's Allah who provides. It is Allah who is in charge of everything that goes on in our life. So doesn't it make more sense, or isn't it wiser, that we live our lives pleasing Him and not pleasing people? So so regarding the example where he gives about the healthy person being able to endure more, whereas the weak person not being able to endure more. So again, when it comes to sabr, calamities in life, we've always heard of people who have a high level of iman, they're being tested. So the calamity on the outside may look like it's bad. For example, if somebody is suffering through cancer, for example, and he's bedridden, and he's, now he knows he has a few months left or a few years left or whatever, and he is, it made him turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It made him more righteous. It made him more pious. It made him do more good deeds. And now he's willing to meet Allah. So he's got, say, for example, somebody's given 5 months to live, and they know that in 5 months they're going to die. Maybe this person might even live on further, who knows? But for example, he's living with that attitude that I have 5 months. So he's going to do his best. If his heart is in a sound state, he will do his best to prepare to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've heard of so many stories like this. If you look up online, those Islamic videos that they post about people dying with cancer and how they prepare their lives to meet Allah, and they actually work hard and they're ready to meet Allah. So now for this person, he must be in a completely different world, waiting to meet Allah, doing so many good deeds, and he must be completely content in his heart, because eventually everybody has to die, right? But on the other hand, people might be thinking, oh, what a poor soul, he has to suffer, he's going through this, why did this happen to him? It's Allah's wisdom. He knows which test to put on which people, right? So even though a person might be suffering, on the outside it might look like a suffering, but on the inside this could be a blessing for that person, and that person knows how to handle it or deal with it. So again, the soundness of the heart is extremely important in how we deal with calamities in our life. So if a person has a sound heart, you will handle a situation in a better way without it affecting your mental status. So if a person is going through a tough time, what is the solution? For example, a person is going through stress or some crisis in their life, and it's affecting them mentally, where they might be depressed or if they're anxious, it's causing them anxiety or stress. How would one deal with the situation? What is the solution for that? It is to go to the book of Allah, recite the Quran, and reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not that the problem will go away, but you will be able to handle it in a better way. You will find ease in your heart. So the minute you feel stressed, the minute you feel, that there's anxiety hitting you, or you're just worried about something, automatically focus on the hereafter. Recite the Quran, read something, or listen to a lecture that makes you a tazkiyah lecture, that not something which is off the topic, something that will literally connect your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and which will remind you about your purpose in life. Automatically the problem becomes small. When we compare anything to the fire of hell, or to the hereafter, or to standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, automatically everything falls into place, and we realize that this is life. There will be ups and downs, there will be tests in life, but the one who has a sound heart is the one who will handle it correctly. Whereas the one who has weak iman will, completely get shattered. So if you really want to preserve our mental health also, like just I'm talking about physical health, if you want to be healthy, because when we did the previous session about stress and how stress affects our body, the topic of medicine of the Prophet, the ones who've not attended can go back to the YouTube channel and listen to the lecture on stress and how stress actually affects our body in a way in which it causes diseases. Or most of the diseases that we have, they have a huge connection with stress. So if one feels that they're leaning towards that, the solution for that is to bring ease to the heart by remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by reading something, by reading the Quran, or by reading a book that would, books like these, which are actually cures for diseases of the heart, or just, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing azkar, dhikr, and listening to something that will bring ease to the heart. And those of you who are Urdu speakers, there is a podcast of Dr. Farhat Hashmi where she does tafsir of the Quran. Whenever you put that on, you will automatically find ease. The way she explains the verses of the Quran, it's like something which we deal with in our daily lives. If we just listen to, the meaning of the Quran, or some short tafsir of any surah that you can pick up and listen to it, it automatically will put you at ease, and it will remove that stress. So what you're doing is you're actually helping your own self by removing the stress and by preserving your body from not getting diseased physically, as well as the disease of the heart. So let me see, I don't want to go too much into detail of this chapter because I want to preserve some of it for the next session. The next topic is about between sickness and death. So we will do that chapter next time, inshallah. And righteous actions being the cure for the heart. So we'll do that also next time, inshallah. So if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat session right now. Next topic will be, I think, the effects of sins. That's what this book has as the next session. Life of the heart, the state of the dead heart. I'm just going through what the index has. The need for beneficial knowledge. The reality of the life of the heart. And then chapter 2, this was all chapter 1. Chapter 2 is when these, it's a session on envy, which is hasad, the types of envy. So that will be our next. But I think the next session, which is 29. So inshallah, we will have the session on 29. But the session, I'm not sure. I will post one day before because I have my exams in the first week of Feb. So so definitely 5th Feb, we're not having it because that's going to be my exam day. So 5th of February, we'll have an off. On whether we have a class on 29th or no, inshallah, I'll post it on the group, inshallah. And then we will resume from 12th February, inshallah. So let me just go to the index and see what is there here. So envy, so there are, I think, like 1, 2, 3. There are 9 chapters on envy. And then there is the disease of desires and passionate love. And the cures for jealousy, the cures for inclination of the heart towards dunya, and then the last chapter about types of hearts. Okay, so it's not much. It's just basically 2 more major chapters left, chapter 2 and chapter 3. I want to send you a private message after the session, inshallah. Yeah, you can just message me on the messenger, on my private messenger chat, inshallah, and I can answer your question there, inshallah. Wa barakatuh.